taken his, yeah, now we go.
Yeah,
Yes, go on. Sorry, yes.
Not at all. I just feel that first set put a lot of pressure on the Sicilian, on Magnus's Sicilian. And let's face it, the Berlin thus far has brought him good games, Peter.
Yeah, now we are seeing the repeat of their third game today. And Hikaru is the first to deviate with bishop d2. Yeah, I mean, this h4, h5 experience worked perfectly well for that one specific game, but we had our doubts ourselves. And one of the reasons why White might want to start with bishop d2 to make sure that this a7, a5 move, which Magnus immediately played after h4, is not anymore possible.
Right. And do I have it in my mind right that it was actually also Magnus playing, I think, against a Wesley So, where somehow he struck out with b4, a4. I'm probably mixing it up, but I seem to remember a game between Magnus and Wesley where bishop d2 and b4 was played. We have b7, b5, knight e3. Peter, is this all recommended theory?
Yeah, I think this is, and look at this, we are about to see something very similar, if not exactly the same as in the previous game, because
a transposition.
But now White goes for knight takes e5, exactly. This is a very concrete line.
Whoa, knight e5. Line. Has he fallen for a trap? There's a knight f7, knight d4, knight f7. No, Peter, maybe this is crazy. Knight d4, knight f7. Is that a trap, a tricky trap that Magnus has fallen for?
And yes, look at Magnus right now. He looks absolutely shocked by what he's done and can't believe it himself.
Right. Whoa. Because it's so rare, Peter, that we ever see knight e5 in any of these lines. And did Magnus error?
I think it's, to be honest, in everybody's computer file, because this is so logical. And when you go b5, knight e3, knight f8, h4, knight e6, knight takes e5, is the first thing you have to check. And the point is that very often in these lines, White pushes the pawn to h5, and once the pawn is on h5, knight takes f7 trick never works. Yeah.
Right.
But here with the pawn on h4, thanks to this queen a5 check idea, after knight d4, White can take on f7, and king f7 runs into queen h5 check, hitting the c5 bishop. Yeah, a terrible blunder by Magnus, and simply playing a5. This is just to continue the game, but clearly it was blunder.
Whoa! At this level, we're not used to these kind of finger failures, and I'm just I'm stunned by this. Well, I'm just stunned by the blunder. I mean, what else can I possibly say? This was really, really unexpected. Okay, he's blundered a pawn. He's come to terms with it. You know, like, okay, bad things do happen. And he's just gotten on with his game, a5, and he just keeps his game face on and says, you know, let me plow my way through this. Now, from Hikaru's point of view, Peter, the first thing, you know, from the hunter-gatherer society that we used to be, you know, you go out, you get a kill, and then you come back and return it to the cave. Is knight f3 what Hikaru should be doing, or does he have a way of continuing the initiative?
Yeah, that's the big question, because, I mean, Hikaru also perfectly understood that Magnus must have missed something. I mean, he just mixed up something, and it was a terrible blunder. So one thing you really want to make sure not to let yourself back into the game. And this is the moment when Hikaru has to be very, very focused and very concentrated to utilize the most out of this mistake by Magnus. Mm-hmm. And he goes for a very direct attempt with queen h5, hitting at the f7 pawn.
And also a moment ago, he could not capture the pawn on c6. Knight takes c6, unfortunately, the desired knight takes c6, queen d6, and you're kind of crying that you captured the pawn. Now, however, if you put the queen on h5 in this exact position, you would have the remarkable move queen d5, and you'd be 2 pawns up, and you'd be laughing your way to the bank. Now, this idea of queen h5 is broad daylight thievery. He's trying to hit the c6 pawn as well as the f7 pawn, Peter.
Yeah, and also basically says that please play g6 because then I'm gonna retreat to f3, hitting the f7 pawn, and you have weakened yourself further. You have also weakened the f6 square, so whenever white takes the c6 pawn, he might follow up with some devastating attack with knight d5 and knight f6 check. So very, very critical situation for the world champion. He's in big trouble, and I don't see any way out from here.
So it's not just a pawn, but again, to repeat the immortal words of Roman Djindjiashvili, it's pawn and compensation, Peter.
Yeah, and g6 played finally out of desperation. I mean, Magnus is already below 2 minutes on the clock.
I loved your variation that you pointed out just a moment ago. Queen f3, hitting f7. And on a good day when you take on c6 and you jump with the knight to d5, it's all one-way traffic. And it looks deadly. This just, wow. You don't expect a miniature on the world champion being on the wrong side of the miniature, I mean to say.
Yeah, I mean, I told you in the first game that actually Magnus doesn't have so much experience in this variation. So it was very nice judgment by Hikaru that, Magnus switched from his desired favorite bishop g4 setup to short castle, but this is such a complex fight with so many subtleties and so many concrete knowledge as well that he might not be so familiar with all the details of these positions. And this is what we are seeing. So f6 played, what to do? There was no other move to be played.
And sorry to interrupt you, but I'm seeing a forced win. I think knight takes c6, queen d6, I think knight g4, which is a kind of a funny move. So the idea is queen takes c6, and I want to go queen takes f6. And the idea is I'm threatening knight h6 mate, like mate. And I'm also wanting to play bishop c3. And it's just looking, it's just, oh my goodness. And that might not be the only win. I'm just saying that it just feels like now Hikaru can calculate a forced win, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no doubt about that.
And we have Tanya. Tanya, are you stunned by what we're seeing, what we're witnessing?
I'm just popping in to tell you that your spidey senses are bang on. Knight c6, knight g4 is a brilliant idea, and we do have Hikaru. He's gone for knight c6, and perhaps after queen d7 as well, white can go for knight g4.
It looks really, really good, Peter. I mean, this is. I like I said, I thought that Hikaru's strategy into the match was to try to get into the blitz portions. Yesterday, I mean, it didn't work. Oops, it just didn't work. But this is great. Hikaru just is taken, by the way, on f6. Is that the right move, Peter?
Well, it's the same idea. After queen takes c6, you can go knight g4, and you end up in the same position. Also, you have the same start with bishop c3, exactly.
Right.
What I wanted to mention that I think the psychology plays a very big role for all these blitz tie breaks. That yesterday Magnus was the one who came back, and today it's Hikaru who came back from that. Yeah, and when you have this scenario, then I think one can forget about who is better in blitz or whom it might favor. Simply at this state of mind, what the players are in, when you are back from a loss from the white pieces and you still have a chance to play the tiebreak, this I think gives such a boost for the player that he definitely has the psychological advantage.
Which again is exactly what we saw yesterday in set 2. After losing with the white pieces, remarkably, somehow, some way, Magnus, made it to a tiebreak, and he got the victory. It would be stunning if Hikaru could now return the favor. By the way, I kind of lost count of the number of pawns, Peter, how many pawns has White managed to pick up in the last couple of moves?
Yeah, White has now already 5 pawns for the piece, plus he's
5.
probably winning back the piece as well. So it's a lot of interest.
Right. Definitely paying dividends. And the tactic behind this move, d4, by the way, is there's a queen g7 check. Should there be a capture on d4, probably even castles long is also on his agenda, but this one is the cleanest, what you've just showed, Peter, that White is going to win a piece. And 5 pawns, Peter. Oof,
yeah, Magnus played the move b4 and he's down to 25 seconds. I mean, the only chance what he has is based on the clock, that, okay, Hikaru has much more time, but nevertheless, it's something of an issue, the clock situation. But the position is so hopeless that basically it's almost resigns.
Tanya.
Yeah, Magnus has no chance in this at all. I mean, this is not a position.
Take it away. We need to catch our breaths.
Speechless. I just, what a game that was. Actually, what a non-game that